Imagine you are formulating a precise drug compound in a biomedical laboratory. Use too little of a reagent, and the medicine is ineffective. Use too much, and it becomes toxic. Every single gram matters. I am Miss Kathy, and today we are going to explore stoichiometry, the mathematical backbone of chemical reactions. You will learn how to calculate exact quantities of reactants and products and understand why these calculations are critical in biomedical engineering applications, like drug manufacturing and medical device production. Let us dive in and build this essential skill together. Take a moment to carefully study this diagram and note the key relationships and values shown. By the end of this session, you will be able to perform mole-based calculations across 4 key areas. First, connecting mass, molar mass, and moles of reactants. Then, determining gas volumes at standard temperature and pressure. From there, relating solution volumes to moles of dissolved solute. And finally, applying molarity and dilution formulas. These skills are fundamental to any real-world chemical process or reaction engineering work. This looks like an overview or objective slide, so let me set up what we are about to explore together. In this section, we are diving into mole concept calculations, which is the mathematical backbone of stoichiometry. Understanding how to work with moles lets you figure out exactly how much of each substance is involved in a chemical reaction, and that is critical in every area of engineering, from manufacturing to environmental systems. Let us get into it. Take a moment to carefully study this diagram and note the key relationships and values shown. Let us talk about molar mass and how it connects mass and moles together. Molar mass is simply the mass in grams of 1 mole of a substance, and its units are grams per mole. Think of it like a price tag. It tells you how much 1 mole of a substance weighs. To find it, you add up the relative atomic masses of every atom in the chemical formula. Once you have the molar mass, the relationship is straightforward. To find moles from a given mass, divide the mass in grams by the molar mass. To find mass from a given number of moles, multiply the moles by the molar mass. These 2 operations are the backbone of nearly every stoichiometry calculation you will encounter in engineering, from calculating reactant quantities to scaling up industrial chemical processes. Get comfortable with this triangle. It will save you every single time. Now, let us talk about one of the most important bridges in chemistry, the mole and Avogadro's constant. 1 mole of any substance contains 6.02 times 10 to the power of 23 particles. That number is Avogadro's constant. Think of it like a dozen, except instead of 12 eggs, you have 602 sextillion particles. Those particles can be atoms, covalent molecules, or ionic formula units, depending on the substance involved. Converting between moles and particles is straightforward. Multiply moles by Avogadro's constant to get particle count. Divide particle count by Avogadro's constant to get moles back. In engineering and chemical process calculations, this conversion is something you will apply constantly. We are working with nitrogen gas, and we are given that the amount is 2.5 moles. So step 1 is simply identifying what we have been given, 2.5 moles of N2. Step 2 is recalling the key relationship. The number of particles equals the number of moles multiplied by Avogadro's constant, which is 6.02 times 10 to the power of 23. Think of Avogadro's constant as a conversion factor. It bridges the microscopic world of individual molecules to the measurable amounts we work with in the lab or in an industrial process. Moles alone tell you quantity in a chemist's unit, but multiplying by Avogadro's constant converts that into an actual count of molecules. A common mistake here is forgetting to apply this conversion and treating moles as if they directly represent particle count. They do not. Keep going. You are building the foundation for all stoichiometric calculations ahead. All right, let us continue from where we left off. In step 3, we substitute our values directly into the formula. We have 2.5 moles of nitrogen gas, and we multiply that by Avogadro's constant, which is 6.02 times 10 to the power 23. In step 4, we carry out the multiplication. 2.5 multiplied by 6.02 times 10 to the power 23 gives us 1.51 times 10 to the power 24 molecules of nitrogen gas. A common mistake here is mishandling the powers of 10 during multiplication. Always deal with the numerical part and the power of 10 separately to avoid errors. So our final answer tells us that in 2.5 moles of nitrogen gas, there are 1.51 times 10 to the power 24 individual molecules. That is an enormous number, which really reinforces why we use moles as a counting unit in chemistry and engineering. Working with individual particles directly would simply be impractical. Take a moment to carefully study this diagram and note the key relationships and values shown. Here is your chance to attempt this before I walk you through it. Pause now. So we are using the relationship number of particles equals moles multiplied by Avogadro's number. We have 0.5 moles of carbon dioxide, and Avogadro's number is 6.02 times 10 to the power of 23. Multiplying 0.5 by 6.02 times 10 to the power of 23 gives us 3.01 times 10 to the power of 23 molecules of carbon dioxide. A common mistake here is forgetting to multiply. Students sometimes just write Avogadro's number directly as the answer. Remember, Avogadro's number applies to exactly 1 mole, so always scale it by the number of moles you have. This result tells us that even half a mole contains an astronomically large number of molecules, which helps explain why moles are so essential in chemical and engineering calculations. Now, here is a concept that makes working with gases surprisingly straightforward. At standard temperature and pressure, 1 mole of any gas, whether it is hydrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, or nitrogen, occupies exactly the same fixed volume. This is the molar volume concept, and it is a powerful tool in stoichiometry. Think of it like a standard shipping container. No matter what product you pack inside, the container size stays the same. 1 mole always fills that same fixed space at standard conditions. The formula is simple. Moles of gas equals volume of gas divided by molar volume at standard temperature and pressure. This mirrors exactly how we convert between moles and mass using molar mass, or between moles and number of particles using Avogadro's number. It is the same conversion logic, just applied to gas volume. Do check your reference data for the exact molar volume figure at standard temperature and pressure, as the value can vary slightly depending on the standard your institution or industry uses. This relationship holds true across all ideal gases, but remember, it only applies strictly at standard temperature and pressure. In real engineering applications, conditions often deviate, and that is when you would need to apply the ideal gas law instead. But at standard conditions, molar volume gives you a fast and reliable conversion every time. Here is your chance to attempt this before I walk you through it. Pause now. So we are converting moles of a gas into a volume at standard temperature and pressure. Step 1 is recalling our key rule. At STP, 1 mole of any gas occupies 22.4 liters. This is the molar gas volume, and it applies universally to all ideal gases, regardless of what the gas actually is. Step 2 is simply noting what we are given, 3 moles of carbon dioxide gas at STP. A common mistake here is forgetting to check whether the conditions specified are actually STP, because this 22.4 liters per mole value only applies at standard temperature and pressure. Always confirm your conditions before applying this relationship. We will use this given amount in the next step to calculate the actual volume, so keep this value in mind as we continue. Here is your chance to attempt this before I walk you through it. Pause now. In step 3, we set up our relationship. At standard temperature and pressure, 1 mole of any ideal gas occupies 22.4 liters. So to find the volume, we simply multiply the number of moles by 22.4 liters per mole. In step 4, we substitute 3 moles into that formula. 3 multiplied by 22.4 gives us 67.2 liters. That means 3 moles of carbon dioxide gas occupy 67.2 liters at standard temperature and pressure. A straightforward but powerful result used constantly in combustion and emissions calculations in real engineering work. Now, we are looking at the concentration of solutions, a concept you will use constantly in chemical engineering, water treatment, pharmaceutical manufacturing, and beyond. Concentration tells us how many moles of solute are dissolved per liter of solution, and we call this molarity. The formula is straightforward. Molarity equals moles of solute divided by volume of solution in liters. Think of it like making coffee. A strong cup means more coffee dissolved in the same amount of water, higher concentration. A weak cup means less, lower concentration. Same idea here. You can also rearrange the formula. If you know the molarity and the volume, multiply them together to find the number of moles. This rearrangement is especially useful in titration calculations and solution preparation. One critical point: always convert your volume to liters before calculating. Using milliliters without converting is one of the most common errors students make, and it throws off your entire answer. This concept connects directly to what we covered earlier. Moles equals mass divided by molar mass. So when you chain these two relationships together, you can move between mass, moles, and concentrations smoothly. That is powerful problem-solving ability right there. Take a moment to carefully study this diagram and note the key relationships and values shown. We are working with sodium hydroxide, NaOH. Step 1 is identifying every atom in the formula: 1 sodium, 1 oxygen, and 1 hydrogen. Step 2, we add their atomic masses. 23 plus 16 plus 1 gives us a molar mass of 40 grams per mole. Step 3, divide the given mass, 30 grams, by 40. That gives 0.75 moles. A common mistake is forgetting to account for every atom in the formula. Always check each element carefully. Here is your chance to attempt this before I walk you through it. Pause now and see if you can figure out the final concentration on your own. All right, let us work through this together. Step 1, we identify our known values. We have an initial concentration of 2.0 moles per liter, an initial volume of 50 milliliters, and a final volume of 200 milliliters after water is added. Step 2, we recall the dilution principle. When you add water to a solution, you are not adding more solute. The number of moles of solute stays exactly the same. It is just spread across a larger volume. This gives us our dilution equation. C1 times V1 equals C2 times V2. A common mistake here is forgetting to use consistent units. Make sure both volumes are in the same unit before substituting. Rearranging for C2, we get C2 equals C1 times V1 divided by V2, which gives us 2.0 multiplied by 50 divided by 200 equaling 0.5 moles per liter. The solution is now 4 times more dilute, which makes physical sense since the volume increased 4 times. Here is your chance to attempt this before I walk you through it. Pause now. Now let us finish solving this together. In step 3, we rearrange the dilution equation to isolate C2, the new concentration after dilution. We get C2 equals C1 multiplied by V1 divided by V2. In step 4, we substitute our known values. C1 is 2.0 mole per liter, V1 is 50 milliliters, and V2 is 200 milliliters. That gives us 100 divided by 200, which equals 0.5 mole per liter. A common mistake here is forgetting that both volumes must be in the same units before substituting. Always check that first. The answer tells us the solution became 4 times more dilute, which makes physical sense because we quadrupled the total volume. This kind of dilution calculation is used constantly in laboratory preparation and industrial chemical processing. And that wraps up our lesson on stoichiometry. We covered mole relationships, balancing chemical equations, and using molar ratios to calculate reactants and products. These skills are not just textbook exercises. Engineers apply them daily when designing chemical processes, formulating materials, and scaling up reactions safely and efficiently. Keep practicing these calculations because precision in stoichiometry can literally mean the difference between a successful process and a costly failure. Stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop asking why. Once again, this is Miss Kathy. Be blessed and be a blessing to others.